Hello, what's up? Welcome to the very first episode of The Token Black Girl. I am your host, Portia Harris, and I'm about to be giving you all the tea on everything. So, first things first, I know for the people that are new here, or for the people who have never even heard the word token before, or if you're on TikTok and you hear token all the doggone time, you're probably wondering, what is a token? What the heck is a token? What does tokenism even mean? So I'm about to tell you. So I looked up the actual definition of what a token is, and I'm going to tell you that, and then I'm going to tell you what I personally think it means. So the actual definition of tokenism is the practice of making a symbolic effort to be inclusive to members of the minority groups, especially by recruiting people from underrepresented groups in order to give an appearance of racial or gender equality. Sounds about right. When you watch TV shows, when you watch movies in the 90s, you had the token black friend that always got killed off if it was a scary movie, or just a token black friend in those high school movies that you always watch, like 10 Things I Hate About You or She's All That. Pretty simple. What I think it means to me is that you are the singular person in your experience, that culturally there is nothing that connects you to anybody or anything in your particular environment. Like, you are the unicorn in a sense. So people view you that way, people look at you that way, all of that. So we're going to keep getting into this. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my life, how I grew up, how I was as a kid. So I grew up in Westmont, Illinois, which is a small town right outside of Chicago. Um, it's pretty much a small suburb. There's nothing really special about it. I wish there was something special about it, y'all, but it's pretty boring. It's car dealerships, it's grocery stores, it's houses and trees and white people. That's what it was. That's Westmont. Um, and then from there, I went to Miller Elementary School, which is an elementary school in Westmont, obviously. But I went there for grades 1, 2, and fifth grade. So I'm always like a hyper and upbeat person. If you know me, you know I'm pretty like, once you actually get to know me, I'm pretty hyper and I'm pretty upbeat and I'm pretty like all over the place. So it wasn't hard for me to make friends. Um, but that doesn't mean that I had any friends that looked like me, but it didn't like really matter to me at that point that I had friends that looked like me. I just wanted friends. I just wanted kids to play with on the playground. I just wanted someone to just play games with and play kickball or be on the swings or go on the slide or race or whatever. I didn't realize it back then, but I do, like, now looking back on my time as a little kid in first and second grade, that I was like pretty much the only black kid in my class. So that kind of meant that I was like this cute little representation of what was tolerable as far as like race and like, oh, the here's our little black girl, or here's our little black kid, because this is the 90s and racism doesn't exist anymore because we are an elevated society in America. So one good example of it is when we had a wax museum in school. We did a wax museum of a whole bunch of historical features. So, you had the George Washingtons, you had the Albert Einsteins, you had all of those different influential people that we learned in history, right? So mine was Harriet Tubman, not because they assigned it to me, but because I picked it because I mean, I wanted to know more about Harriet Tubman. Not and that was what I was being taught in school because she freed the slaves. So that's pretty much what they would talk about in February during Black History Month is how Harriet Tubman freed the slaves. So I wanted to be Harriet Tubman because, well, she was a Black woman and I was a Black girl. So why not? And that was cute to the people that watch or people that came to the Wax Museum because you see all these other kids around and then you see this cute little Black girl and it's like, I'm Harriet Tubman. And they're just like, oh, look at you running for freedom. But like I said earlier, it wasn't hard for me to make friends at all. It was just that none of them really looked like me, but we had very similar qualities. Like we liked Spice Girls, we liked Backstreet Boys, we watched the same cartoons, we watched the same shows, like we liked playing dress up and having tea parties and all these other things. So those similarities created a bond and a friendship within me and those particular girls, whether they were white or not. Um, Bonds and friendships that I still have to this day, and I appreciate and I love them for that. Um, so that I can't really say that we were different in physical features, but we weren't like different at all when it came to just everything else that we had in common. And one thing I will say is that a lot of people when they talk about being a token Black kid in a suburban area or just in whatever environment that they grew up with, they experience a lot of racism from an early age. And I'm fortunate and blessed enough to say that I didn't experience that much racism as a kid. Um, no one called me out of my name. I never got called a nigger. I never got called blackie. I think there was one time I can single-handedly point out one kid that gave me a hard time for being Black in the second grade. And I think he was from like, which is really funny because he was actually from Czechoslovakia or something like that. He was an immigrant. He was an immigrant, which was not interesting, but it's interesting to me now. But he always used to point out how dark I was, or I was darker than everyone else in the class. But that was really the only thing that I personally can remember from being, I don't know, racially profiled or being mean to as being a kid. Like, obviously, there was bullies. Everyone had like the bullies, but nobody was mean to me for being Black, which I'm that's not that's not the norm for most token Black kids, and I understand that and I appreciate that aspect in what how I grew up as a kid because a lot of people don't experience that. They experience racism like right out of the gate. As the time went past, obviously the older we get, the more new kids that come in, the bigger the class size gets. There's more kids, there's more Black kids. You would think that by the time that there's more Black kids in there that I would have some more Black friends and I would have more people that I could have those interactions with, have that um Black friendships, I guess you could say. Um but no, not really. There was like always a disconnect between me and the other Black kids at school. And it's not necessarily because I felt that way, it was more because they felt that way. I never really noticed it right away. But the older I got, the more I kept hearing was that you act so much like a white girl, you talk like a white girl. Why do you wear that? Why do you like that song? Like why do you listen to NSYNC? Why do you want to watch Lizzie McGuire? Even though Lizzie McGuire was fired. And I don't know why some people was hating on Lizzie McGuire, but Lizzie McGuire was fired. Anyway, like how come you don't watch Dave Chappelle. No one should be watching Dave Chappelle in fifth and sixth grade. I'm sorry, y'all. It was inappropriate. Nobody should be watching it. But I didn't watch Dave Chappelle until like later. I caught up. I went back and watched it. Um, but yeah, so in my whole school experience, I think I had a total of 3 actual Black friends. And what I mean by that is that actual friends, and I could talk to them, I could relate to them, I could confide in them. I did not feel afraid to be myself or to act how I normally act around my white friends. I was able to be them. Now, with that being said, those 3 actual Black friends did advocate for me to the other Black kids. They said, "Hey, give Portia a chance. Let her be like who she is. She's actually cool. She's really funny. Like let her in." And sometimes, or they would just be like, "Hey, just come sit with us because you're with me." So they'll let you sit there. Um and I would go and sit there, but it would still be some kind of disconnect. I would still feel uncomfortable. It would just feel forced all the time. It would always feel forced. Like I wasn't supposed to sit there, or I just didn't feel like I should have sat there, or they didn't want me to sit there. And I just didn't think it would change. I felt that way in junior high, in middle school. I felt that way in high school. It didn't really change until I went to college, where it was a totally new group of people, um, that I started to feel different, or that I started to feel like I wasn't so different, or to meet Black kids that had the same experience that I had. So outside of school, my Black experience was a little bit better. And I attribute that to going to a Black church on the south side of Chicago. Um, so pretty much I had known all these kids since I was born. I grew up with these kids. We were in the choir, we were in praise dance, we did Sunday school together, we did vacation Bible school together. So I knew these kids, and these kids knew me, and we had those friendships. I was still able to have, quote unquote, a Black experience through my friendships, through the church, through going through the church. And even still, there was still instances where I still felt kind of left out or different, because I talk like a worker. I talk like the white girl. There was no getting over that one. There was no walking, skipping. There was no switch up, change. Not until I was older, anyway. I still had like this cute little baby voice, and my name's Portia, and this is what I do, and hi guys. And so I still got made fun of because of that. And I also, for a short period of time, got nicknamed Malibu because of where and how far I lived in proximity to like everyone else. Like they lived on the south side or south suburbs. I lived all the way like 40 minutes away from them in a predominantly white town. Like we had 2 extremely different experiences in life. So I would laugh at the jokes. I would tell them to shut up, even though, quietly, because, you can't tell other kids to shut up in a Black church, because one of the older saints, seasoned saints, will hear you. If you know, you know. And they'll say, "What did you say? We don't use shut up in here." Yeah, it still hurt, because how could I change who I was? How could I change what I have? This is essentially my personality now. I can't change the way I talk. I can't change who I am. I can't change what I like. Um, and then on the flip side of that, being told by my parents and being told by my family how lucky I was as a child to be in the neighborhood that I was and in the school that I was, how plenty of kids do not get those opportunities to be in this specific neighborhood or be in this specific school, or to get the education that I received. Um, and it's not that I was ashamed of where I lived or where I came from or who my friends were, because I didn't. I loved where I lived. I loved where I went to school. I loved my friends. But I always felt like if I had more Black experiences, maybe things would be a lot more easier for me as far as making friends, or as far as having something to relate to other than tea parties and Backstreet Boys and cartoons and Barbies. I would have something else to relate to, because I can't relate to these girls when they're talking about their hair. I can't relate to these girls when they're talking about their parents making, I don't know, lasagna for the 15th time. I don't know. We had spaghetti. It's another form of pasta. So I don't, possibly, maybe, I don't know. I just figured I always had that disconnect, and I just, for the longest time I wasn't sure if I was ever going to find it or if I ever was going to have something like it ever. Um so now I want to talk about what it is now and if I still consider myself a token. What's it like now? So now my experience is totally different, as I'm standing sitting here as a 32-year-old Black woman. My experience is totally different. I'm in a totally whole new environment. I live in Chicago. Um I have all of my friends are Black. Besides my friends that I grew up with in high school, in middle school, and elementary school, besides that specific group of women, or because I can't call them girls anymore because we're all grown women. Besides those specific group of girls, I don't have any white friends. I don't know what it's like to have white friends anymore. I don't I don't relate to them anymore. They don't see me the way I see them, and I don't see them the way they see me. And like I said earlier, I saw myself in those little girls. As a little girl, I saw myself in those little girls that, we had all this relations, but all these different things in common. Now I see myself in the Black community. I see myself in other Black women. I see myself in things that happen in the world today, whether it be pop culture, racial inequality, like all of those things still play a major, or do play a major role in my life now. Now, a lot of things attribute to that, me being older, me not being a little kid, me being an adult in society. All of that factors in. That's a thing. Um, but how I look at it right now, as people will say, well, do you still consider yourself a token, or do you think being a token was a bad thing? I don't think being a token was a bad thing. As a matter of fact, I refer to myself as a reformed token. And what a reformed token to me personally is that I'm very much immersed in the Black community. I'm very much immersed into the Black experience. I just like a little bit of white stuff every now and then. I got a little Taylor Swift sprinkled in there. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think being called a token has to always have to have a negative connotation to it. You can have that experience, and there might be some negative experiences with it. And we're going to get into it throughout this or throughout this show. We're going to talk about all the nitty gritty. Like, we're going to talk about being fetishized as a Black woman. We're going to talk about microaggressions that maybe you didn't realize were happening to you in school, but They were happening and they were there. We're going to talk about sometimes even your own friends saying things to you that maybe they didn't think was offensive, but was actually really offensive. We're going to talk about when you were called not black enough, or you're not black. Oh, like Portia, you're okay. You're not like the rest of them. We're going to get into those things. All of those experiences don't have to end in a negative way. You don't have to hate where you come from. You don't have to hate where you grew up, or hate the people, or assume that you do not have to be friends with those white girls anymore because you don't have anything in common with them. Because I still have plenty of things in common with those white girls I'm still friends with. We're just older now. I might understand things a lot more than I did when I was 7 or 12 or 16. But that's growing up. That's a part of life. So that is my rant for right now. I am very, very excited to be starting this journey with you guys. I hope that you come along for the ride. It's going to be a wild ride. We're going to talk about everything under the sun. And yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick little snippet, a quick little intro into who I am and what I'm going to be talking about and what I'm going to be giving you guys. So one thing I want to leave you guys with is Black people are not a monolith. We are different in every way, shape, shade, form. But at the end of the day, we are still Black and we are still beautiful. So with that being said, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram. It's at PorscheBaby90. You can follow me on Twitter as well. That's also going to be at PorscheBaby90. I'm going to have it linked down below so you guys can just click on the link and then just follow me from there. So I will see you guys next week in the next episode. And till then, I bid you farewell. Bye, guys.